Imagine you are a young child and America has gone to war. Unfortunately, your father must go to war as he is a member of the U.S. Air Force. Months pass without word when suddenly you get news that your father has died. This could have all been prevented with unmanned aerial vehicles.
In some ways, unmanned aerial vehicles, will be more safe. And here's why. Because if you are a pilot sitting in a cockpit at 30,000 feet in the middle of the night, right, you're just one guy with one moment in time to make a decision to release ammunition that could potentially hurt someone innocent, right? In a split second, you're going to make that decision, and it'll forever be that way. If you are a pilot in an unmanned aerial vehicle, right, you're sitting in a room somewhere with a lot of other folks, and those other folks are helping you make your decisions, right? So you're all watching the same video footage, you're all seeing the same targets, and you have the benefit to, have your work checked before you release that ammunition. So in a lot of cases, they're more safe than piloted aircraft.
Like switch sides to be pro?
Less prone to do civilian damage and unintended consequences. That makes sense?
Operation covering 3 provinces in Yemen and pounding an al-Qaeda training site. A Yemeni official telling me this morning that more than 30 suspected al-Qaeda operatives were killed, and that included in the dead may be a top-tier al-Qaeda leader, and they are waiting for confirmation of that now.
Official says the intelligence on the militants and the truck was very, very pinpoint, with high confidence in the target. In an instant, the missile struck.
With the current technology we have, we are able to use drone strikes to accurately take down possible terrorist threats, which will prevent the terrorists from carrying out violent attacks against U.S. armed forces like this.
And the whole purpose of it is, to just defend the United States and American citizens abroad and in the country's interests. It will never, make sense to lose 5 Americans to deal with a threat that can be dealt with without losing those 5 Americans, right? So in that regard, unmanned aerial vehicles could be a tool to be used in a certain situation. And if that means, reaching out and touching a bad guy without putting an American at risk to potentially not come home, then that's always a viable option.
To do nothing in the face of terrorist networks would invite far more civilian casualties, not just in our cities at home and our facilities abroad, but also in the very places like Sana'a and Kabul and Mogadishu, where terrorists seek a foothold.
We're really talking about unmanned aerial vehicles, which by default is still an American airman making decisions. The United States has some of the most fantastic airmen that the world has ever known. They're the best trained, they're the best equipped, and they have a great sense of values because America is a nation of values.
You have more questions.
We don't live in a dictatorship. I believe in human rights, equal rights. So in that sense, war is generally not an ideal situation. It's something to be avoided, but there are times when you're attacked, and that is the response.
Remember that the terrorists we are after target civilians, and the death toll from their acts of terrorism against Muslims dwarfs any estimate of civilian casualties from drone strikes.
The use of American drone strikes is far more effective at reducing both American and civilian casualties. So why would we hesitate to use these strikes to our advantage?
Conventional air power, or missiles, are far less precise than drones and are likely to cause more civilian casualties and more local outrage. And invasions of these territories lead us to be viewed as occupying armies, unleash a torrent of unintended consequences, are difficult to contain, result in large numbers of civilian casualties, and ultimately empower those who thrive on violent conflict. So it is false to assert that putting boots on the ground is less likely to result in civilian deaths or less likely to create enemies in the Muslim world. The results would be more U.S. deaths, more Black Hawks Down, more confrontations with local populations, and an inevitable mission creep in support of such raids that could easily escalate into new wars.
Terrorists have taken the lives of our citizens and threatened our safety here on our own soil. We cannot stand for that. We must strike back. With the superior technology we have here in the States, we have many options in striking back at the terrorists. But the best option is unmanned aerial vehicles. Unmanned aerial vehicles have many benefits, including keeping our airmen out of direct danger, extremely high accuracy, and helping to prevent future terrorist attacks. They are the least costly to both our economic budget and American lives.
An unmanned aerial vehicle strike would be one piece of a much larger effort with a lot of other folks involved in a lot of other activities. Some of those activities, could, don't always, but could involve soldiers or Marines on the ground. Some of those will involve, folks in the sky just doing observation. Some of that would be, other members of government trying to work with that host nation government to help themselves rid their country of this threat, because it's, in a lot of cases, as big a threat to that country as it is ours, right? So, when you say more effective or less effective, it's one tool. So, if you're building a house, you have a toolbox, you have a lot of things in the toolbox. Hammer is one of them, but not every, aspect of building that house requires you hitting a nail with a hammer, right? That's one thing, but there's a whole lot of other stuff that goes into it, so it's really hard to say more.
Imagine you are a young child and America has gone to war. Unfortunately, your father must go to war, as he is a member of the U.S. Air Force. Months pass without word, when suddenly your father appears at your door, unharmed, thanks to unmanned aerial vehicles.